They laughed at Cassandra as if she was still the weak little girl they could control. But when her grandparents passed away and she inherited $26 million, the same parents who once ignored her suddenly turned into predators. At the funeral, instead of mourning, her father leaned close and whispered, "That money belongs to us. Hand it over." The words cut deeper than any wound. Cassandra froze, realizing this wasn't grief. It was greed. And that was only the beginning. If you're hooked already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because what comes next will leave you shocked. She didn't say a word in that moment, only nodded slightly, hiding the storm brewing inside her. Everyone thought Cassandra would give in, just like she always had. They believed she was fragile, someone who couldn't stand against them. But this time was different. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was the last gift of love from her grandparents, the only people who ever believed in her. She had promised herself she wouldn't let anyone steal that away. Yet, her parents had already planned something bigger, something that would push Cassandra into the darkest test of her life. Would you like me to continue the next section with the twist at the dinner scene where her parents publicly humiliate her, or keep building slow suspense before that? That night, Cassandra was invited to a family dinner. At first, she thought maybe, just maybe, her parents wanted to make peace. But as she walked into the dining room, the cold stares of her relatives told her otherwise. The air was thick, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. Her father raised his glass and cleared his throat. "Everyone," he announced, "let's not pretend anymore. Cassandra is nothing without this money. She's a single mother, a burden, and she will never succeed without us. That inheritance—" He paused, staring at her with piercing eyes. "Isn't hers. It belongs to the family." Laughter broke out around the table. Her cousins smirked, her aunts whispered, and her own mother sat silently, refusing to meet Cassandra's eyes. Each word sliced deeper than the last. But Cassandra didn't flinch. She sat still, her face calm, her heart pounding so hard it almost drowned out their voices. In that moment, she realized the truth. This dinner wasn't about family. It was an ambush. They wanted to strip her of her dignity, corner her into giving up everything her grandparents left behind. But what they didn't know was that Cassandra had been preparing for this moment long before they ever asked. Beneath the table, her hands clenched into fists, not out of fear, but out of resolve. She wasn't the fragile girl they once controlled. She was something entirely different now. And the storm they had unleashed was only just beginning. The humiliation at the dinner table was unbearable, but Cassandra refused to let a single tear fall. She knew that if she broke in front of them, they would win. Her father's words echoed in her mind. She's nothing without this money. Those words were meant to crush her spirit, but instead, they fueled something far more dangerous: determination. After the dinner ended, Cassandra returned to her quiet apartment. Her little daughter was asleep on the couch, clutching the teddy, bear her grandparents had once gifted her. Cassandra sat beside her and gently brushed the child's hair, whispering, "I promise you, no one will take away what belongs to us." That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she opened her grandfather's old files and letters. He had always believed in her, always told her she was smarter than anyone else in the family gave her credit for. Among the papers, Cassandra discovered a shocking detail. Her grandparents hadn't just left her the $26 million. They had left her full ownership of 2 businesses, a chain of small stores, and a large piece of land that her father had secretly been eyeing for years. Suddenly, everything became clear. This wasn't about family pride or what belongs to us. This was about power. Her father and relatives didn't just want the money. They wanted to control her, to strip her of every ounce of independence. But Cassandra was no longer the weak girl they remembered. She began making quiet moves, meeting lawyers, securing documents, transferring her inheritance into accounts only she controlled. Every time her phone rang with her father's number, she let it go unanswered. Every message filled with threats, and emotional blackmail was deleted without a reply. Days turned into weeks, and rumors began spreading through the family. Some said Cassandra had already spent the money foolishly. Others whispered that she was planning to hand it over to strangers. The gossip grew louder, but Cassandra stayed silent. What her family didn't know was that Cassandra had been carefully setting the stage. She wasn't just protecting her inheritance, she was preparing to expose them. The truth about their greed, their cruelty, and the way they had abandoned her when she needed them most. The same relatives who laughed at her during the dinner had no idea that Cassandra was about to turn the tables. And once she did, nothing would ever be the same again. The tension had been building for weeks, but Cassandra knew the time had finally come to strike back. Her family thought she was hiding, but in reality, she was calculating. Every move they made, every rumor they spread, only gave her more reason to expose the truth. One morning, instead of avoiding them, Cassandra walked straight into her father's company headquarters, a place she had avoided since childhood, because it always felt like his empire, his world, not hers. But that day, she walked in differently. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, her head was held high, and she carried a thick file of documents under her arm. The receptionist froze. Employees whispered as she passed by. And when she finally entered the main boardroom, the family was already there. Her father at the head of the table, her uncles and cousins sitting like judges waiting to deliver a sentence. Her father leaned back, smirking. "Finally decided to come begging?" he taunted. But Cassandra didn't flinch. She placed the file on the table and slid it across to him. "No," she said calmly. "I came to remind you of something." He frowned and opened the folder. Inside were copies of her grandparents' will, property deeds, and legal documents, all signed, sealed, and verified. The boardroom grew silent. Every signature proved one thing. Cassandra wasn't just the heir to $26 million. She was now the rightful owner of several key assets her father had been quietly controlling as if they were his. Her uncle stammered, This must be a mistake." Cassandra's voice was steady, sharp as a blade. "The only mistake was thinking I wouldn't fight back. You laughed at me. You called me nothing. But the truth is, this inheritance was never yours. And I will never, ever let you take it away from me or my daughter." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. For the first time, her father's smirk faded. His jaw tightened, his pride wounded. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by Cassandra, the daughter he had once dismissed as weak. But this wasn't the end. Cassandra knew they wouldn't stop so easily. Her family's greed ran too deep. Yet as she stood there, locking eyes with every single one of them, she made a silent vow. If they wanted war, she was ready. And this time, she wasn't fighting alone. She had the truth, the law, and an unshakable will on her side. Cassandra thought her bold move in the boardroom would finally silence her family, but she underestimated their desperation. Losing control of the inheritance meant losing power, and her father was a man who would never accept defeat. Not from anyone, especially not from his own daughter. The very next week, Cassandra began to notice strange things happening. Anonymous phone calls at night. Men following her car at a distance. And worst of all, rumors spreading in the media. Articles claiming Cassandra was unstable, unfit to handle her inheritance, and even neglectful as a mother. It didn't take long for her to realize where it was all coming from. Her father had hired a team of lawyers and PR experts to paint her as unworthy of the fortune. He wanted to prove to the world that Cassandra wasn't capable, so that if the matter went to court, Public opinion would already be against her. One evening, as Cassandra tucked her daughter into bed, she caught her little girl asking, "Mommy, why are people saying bad things about you on TV?" The question broke her heart, but it also ignited a fire in her soul. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about her name, her dignity, her child's future. The very next day, Cassandra called a press conference of her own. Standing in front of flashing cameras, she spoke with a calm but powerful voice. "For too long, my family has tried to control me with money and fear. They want to call me weak, but I am not weak. I am a mother, a fighter, and the rightful heir to what my grandparents built. This isn't just about inheritance, it's about standing up to manipulation and greed, and I will not be silenced." Her words spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up. Social media flooded with support, and for the first time, the public saw Cassandra not as a victim, but as a warrior standing against her own bloodline. Her father, however, was enraged. In his eyes, Cassandra had declared war in front of the entire world, and he was determined to strike back harder than ever before. But what he didn't know was that Cassandra had allies he hadn't considered. Lawyers who believed in her case, journalists who wanted to expose the family's corruption, and even a few relatives who were secretly rooting for her behind closed doors. The battle lines were drawn. The storm was growing darker, and Cassandra knew. The real fight had only just begun. The courtroom was silent. All eyes were fixed on Cassandra as her father's high-priced lawyers threw accusation after accusation, trying to paint her as reckless, unstable, and undeserving of the inheritance. Documents were waived, false witnesses were called, and whispers of scandal echoed through the gallery. For a moment, it seemed like Cassandra was drowning in a sea of lies. But then she stood, calm, unshaken, her voice cutting through the noise, like a blade. "You can twist words, you can buy witnesses, but you cannot erase the truth. My grandparents built this legacy on love, honesty, and hard work, and I will not let greed destroy it." With those words, she presented her evidence, real documents that exposed her father's misuse of family funds, proof of his manipulations, and even testimonies from relatives who had secretly decided to support her. The courtroom gasped, her father's face drained of color. The judge's gavel fell. The inheritance belongs to Cassandra. Tears filled her eyes, not just of victory, but of freedom. This wasn't about wealth anymore. This was about finally breaking free from the chains of control that had haunted her for years. As she walked out of the courtroom, holding her daughter's hand, cameras flashed and reporters shouted her name. But Cassandra didn't care about the headlines. What mattered was the little voice beside her whispering, "I'm proud of you, Mommy." That was her real victory. And while her father sat in silence, defeated by his own greed, Cassandra finally felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She had stood against betrayal, against manipulation, and against her own blood. And she had won. Her story was more than just about inheritance. It was about resilience, about courage, about a woman who refused to be silenced,